Hi, so welcome to part three. This is going to be, I believe, the most difficult part of this entire boot camp. This is what takes me and all of my clients the longest to get right. And the reason for this is that we deliberately choose to spend a lot more time getting this right, paying attention to this, coming back to this, doing more and more research, never thinking that the research we've done for something like this is enough than we do for any of the other sections. And the reason for that is that stakeholder mining done well forms the basis of everything that you're going to do, right? I know you're anyway looking at competitors. I know you're anyway looking at what's going on, what's happening in the market, what's working, what's not working. Maybe you don't have any way of knowing what's actually working and what's just extremely marketable, creative campaign out of the box. Is it converting? Is it not? We may not know everything, but I know you're already looking. The purpose of this is to give all your research a framework. I know of folks who've spent a few months as they work on building and not launching, but just, early research before they've quit their jobs. Also, just go through step one um, from this and longer story. But I've done this work, a similar or a more rudimentary version of this workshop for a VC accelerator that I was a part of. I've taught this over the many years at WTF, MESA, different business schools, at different startup events. And what you see is the most advanced version of the entire workshop or bootcamp. So again, my point is that folks have used just step one to even understand if they want to start up or not, or at least analyze if their startup has potential. I remember one great feedback I'd got after after doing a more rudimentary version of this workshop at an accelerator event, where this startup founder came to me and said, "I hate you. I've spent 8 months working on my startup idea. That's what got me into this accelerator, also. And after doing this entire organized structuring and thinking around everything that I've been working on, I realized how much of a blind spot I was in. And I was actually not building something that had true value. So thank you, but I hate you." And I know it wasn't the best case outcome, right? But if this workshop or if this step could help someone save years of their time, I will take that as a win. So let's do stakeholder mining and understand what this is and who this is for. This is for anyone who still hasn't figured out exactly who their customers are. In many cases, you might have some sense of PMF when you're doing this. PMF is product market fit for folks who don't know what that means. Sorry, I'm just going to have some water. इतने बोलने में प्यास तो लगती है. Yeah. So for those who have some sense of PMF but are still struggling to understand who are we scaling all of this up for, who is our target audience, who have we really solved this problem for, this step will help. So, stakeholder mining is where think about our consumers, our customers, our buyers, our approvers. And I know those who of you who are in B2B or B2B sales, you're not directly selling to a customer. You know that a consumer and the customer and the buyer and the approver might be different. So, we do want to understand what gets the needle moving for each one. Now, the way I recommend you do this is you mine reviews to start off. Where do you mine reviews? Couple of places. One, obviously, product pages on Amazon, Flipkart, all of this. I will not recommend कि आप अपने competitor के website पे जाके उनके testimonials और product pages के reviews देखो. Testimonials video based आप फिर भी देख सकते हो थोड़ा सीखने के लिए. But usually जितने भी ये product reviews डलते हैं, they are all done by the company itself to increase SEO rankings and increase the number of reviews. They are not done by customers. Actually, at least in India, we don't have that culture. I know there are many apps also that want to gamify more reviews for product pages on websites. It doesn't work. So I will recommend you don't do that, because that's mostly the company itself feeding that data. You don't want to get there. Get to Reddit, get to Amazon, Flipkart, all of these, aggregator product pages. Get to, let me just show you some of these more examples. This is from Product Hunt. So, look at Product Hunt in case, you're building something in tech, in case you're building a product first solution. There's a platform called Product Hunt for it. There are WhatsApp groups and communities that you could be a part of. There are Reddit groups that you could be a part of. And this is obviously aside from doing real interviews, right? I will recommend doing a mix of both. My recommendation is to always do at least 150 to 200 interviews for something like this, so that you can start building patterns. Now, some very interesting companies also in India. Internationally, they already exist. In India, some very interesting ones coming up. There's a company called Flickly, and I will link their details below in the description box. And I love the work they do. They make it easy for you to do A/B testing and do consumer research really fast. The goal of that is, let's say, for example, you have some marketing messages you want to try out. You test it with their base of customers already. So, depending on the resources that you have access to, let's say you have a lot of money and not a lot of time, you can get to a Flickly very quickly. Let's say you don't have a lot of money but you have a lot of time, you can get to mining reviews. Let's say you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of time, my recommendation is to wait out and not do the startup at all, because this is the most important part of what you're going to build. Do not skip this step. I cannot say this enough. Understanding your consumer deeply is the most important part of what you do. Everything else rests on this. आपको बहुत पैसा कमाना है, आप अपने कस्टमर को समझ नहीं रहे हो, आप नहीं कमा पाओगे, क्योंकि अलाइनमेंट ही नहीं आएगा. अलाइनमेंट इस ही चीज से आएगा. Another thing, I know a lot of people use forms. Do not make that mistake. Do as much of real world testing as possible. Speak to people yourself as possible. द नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज, एंड ये ना चीज़ हम यूजुअली नहीं सीखते हैं. हमें पता है हमें क्या आंसर चाहिए, और वो आंसर के लिए जो क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहिए हम वो पूछ लेते हैं. इसको लॉ में लीडिंग क्वेश्चंस बोलते हैं. कोर्ट में अलाउड नहीं होते कि आप किसी को एक आंसर तक लीड करें. लेट्स से आप पूछना चाह रहे हैं कि क्या आप ये हील्स पहनेंगे, आप शू ब्रांड बना रहे हैं, एंड यू वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड इफ अ पर्टिकुलर कस्टमर विल ऑर्डर हील्स लाइक दैट. Now, when you ask that question, they are bound to say yes. वो मना क्यों करेंगे? One, you're asking them directly, वो आपको बुरा नहीं फील कराना चाह रहे. Two, हाँ बोलने में कुछ जा नहीं रहा. लेकिन अगर आप पूछते हैं, आप ये पूछे ही मत कि क्या आप ये हील्स पहनना चाहेंगे. अगर आप ये पूछते हैं पिछले 1 साल में आपने कितनी हील्स खरीदी हैं, किस ओकेजन्स पे खरीदी हैं, और किस टाइप की हील्स खरीदी है, किस प्राइस पॉइंट पे खरीदी हैं, तो आप उनके पास्ट बिहेवियर से डिटर्मिन कर सकते हैं. आप एजुकेटेड गेसेस ले सकते हैं. You don't have to speak to them to get answers. You have to speak to them to get enough information for you to make educated guesses. Expertise आप ही लेकर आओगे, लेकिन उनसे आपको way of thinking पता चलेगी. Another example, a lot of people, you ask anyone, actually try this. Let me ask you also, and you might put your answer and your actual in the comments below, where tell me a guesstimate of how much time you spend on your Instagram. And once you have told me that in the comments, I want you to go and see on the Instagram app how much time you actually, on a daily average, spend on Instagram. The answers will always be varied. When you ask people a question that leads them to making an impression on you, they will always want to make the best impression. Whether it's true or not is not the case. They will just want to make the best impression. This is human nature. तो आपको चाहिए कि आप लीडिंग क्वेश्चंस ना पूछें, आप समझने के क्वेश्चंस पूछें कि मैं आपको समझना चाह रहा हूँ. आपने ये डिसीजन क्यों लिया, आपने ये डिसीजन कैसे लिया, आपने पास्ट में क्या क्या डिसीजंस लिए हैं ऐसे. क्योंकि फ्यूचर बिहेवियर का हम बेस्ट तरह का पता पास्ट बिहेवियर से लगा सकते हैं. सो दीज आर सम tricks of the trades that I've tried to share with you, which I want you to utilize for this. Now, what do we have to do? Oh, before that, sorry. Now, stakeholders kya kya ho sakta hai jinse I would love for you to speak to as much as possible. Let's say you're building a B2C brand. आप एक FMCG product बना रहे हैं in beauty, और आप चाह रहे हैं कि आप 500 to 600 रुपीज़ MRP का एक स्किन केयर प्रोडक्ट बनाएं. आप उसमें ऑब्वियसली आप जो लोग खरीदते हैं आप उनसे बात करेंगे ही करेंगे. आपको कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स से भी बात करनी चाहिए, क्योंकि आज का टाइम बहुत अलग है. इन्फ्लुएंसर्स, कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स आर द न्यू सेलिब्रिटीज. दे हैव द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. They are testing out the hooks. They are testing out the messages that are working, that are not working, whosoever you have in your network, right? uh, आपको आप अपनी D2C वेबसाइट पे श्योर बेचेंगे, लेकिन आप शायद क्विक कॉमर्स पे भी बेचें, आप Amazon पे भी बेचें, आप और aggregators से भी बेचें. तो try and getting in touch with those platform category managers to understand the market as well. You might speak to manufacturers and understand what's going on, what's not going on. In some cases, let's say you're building a dermaceutical product, or you're making condoms, for example. Condoms are an essential medical commodity. So when I was launching it, I had to go and speak to the policymakers and regulators there to understand the pricing as well, which is allowed versus not allowed in India. I also spoke to a lot of raw material suppliers to understand what all is possible. Now, sure, not each one of them will buy, and when we do the canvas, we will only focus on potential people who will either purchase or use, but all of these will give you tons of insights, right? Let's take B2B, right? A company may, if I'm an employee, I am using the tool, but this tool is being purchased by the finance team, जिनको instruction किसी और टीम ने दिए हैं. उस टीम को इंस्ट्रक्शंस में भी एचआर ने दिए, या सेल्स टीम ने दिए, या टेक टीम ने दिए. अप्रूवल शायद सीईओ से आया. तो इवन दो कंज्यूमर कोई और है, उसको फाइनेंस या परचेज कोई और कर रहा है, उसको अप्रूव कोई और कर रहा है, उसका पिच कोई और सुन रहा है, उसको रेकमेंड कोई और कर रहा है, एंड ईच वन ऑफ देम हैव अ डिफरेंट मोटिवेशन टू डू इट. वी वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट दैट लुक्स लाइक, राइट? सो आप हमेशा ये ध्यान रखना कि आपका कस्टमर, आपका कंज्यूमर और आपका बायर ज़रूरी नहीं है कि सेम हो. Let's take an example. When you are selling food products for babies, the consumer is the baby, right? So you have to make sure, in terms of food production, that the baby really likes the taste. But the parents are the customers. They are going to buy this. So you have to also make sure on their end that, parents will buy themselves. Their motivation is going to be, it should be healthy, it should not be, unhealthy for the child. So how do you balance that, and what message do you send where is going to be important for you? Yeah. Again, reminding you once again, if you are coming here from the first two videos, you have to put in your questions in the comments below. I will answer all of them, but make sure anytime you have a question, do not do yourself the disservice of not asking and clarifying it. Okay. Now, in the GTM canvas that you're looking at already, for each stakeholder, we will answer all of these categories, right? The first category we have to answer for a stakeholder is, what is the status quo? Now, status quo is abhi default kya hai? Where are they right now? You will use this as, like it says on the screen also, you will use this as point A to build motivation so that change status quo can be changed. लेकिन innately, as human beings, न्यूटन का भी लॉ है, a body that stays at rest will continue to stay at rest until there's an intervention. There is status quo bias. We are very comfortable with the way things are, even if it's not the best case scenario for us. We don't want to do something different from what we're doing today. So, you know what happens when, let's say, you're building supplement brands, or you're building healthcare products, anything that needs behavior change, right? It's very hard to do, which is why one trick that brands use is to build in formats that people are already very used to. Why do you think Superuse wafer worked so well to increase protein consumption in daily lives of people versus a protein bar? Because someone who's using a protein bar will continue to use it, there's no problem. But converting someone who is by default a chocolate consumer and loves consuming chocolate, for that occasion, you can't switch them to protein bar for the consumption of chocolate. They might eat protein bars otherwise, but जब उनको chocolate खानी है तब उनको chocolate ही खानी है, even if the protein bar by default is the same format, has chocolate in them, has good taste, all of that. That's why Superuse Protein Wafer, which was intended to be a chocolate alternative, has worked so well for the brand, because they did not change status quo in the sense of changing behavior. Within the same status quo, they gave an alternative that did the job better, right? There are two creative tricks you want to use in this, or people use in this, right? अगर status quo है तो हम सबसे पहले तो pretend करते हैं कि प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है हमें. हमें पीरियड पेन हो रहा है और बहुत सारे रिसोर्सेज हैं, सबने बता दिया किस तरह का खाना खाना है क्या नहीं है, बट बाय द एंड ऑफ इट हम बोलते हैं अरे ये तो सबको ही होता है, हर महीने होता है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेट्स जस्ट एडजस्ट विद दिस। हम मानना ही नहीं चाहते कि हमारे में कोई प्रॉब्लम है, हम यही डिफॉल्ट मान के चलते कि हमारे में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, तो लॉट ऑफ पीपल वर्क ऑन दिस। For example, let's say there's someone, there's a knee exercise product, and you tell people that you have to use, if you're in your 30s, you have to use this knee exercise or a neck exercise product or a posture correction product, so that your posture does not um, worsen over the years. Now, first thing we'll do is pretend that it's not a problem. My posture is perfect. I actually sit perfectly well, even though I'm on my computer the whole day and the whole day I'm slouching like this. Right? We will pretend we don't have a problem or there is no problem actually. And the problem, even if it's there, it's not with us. The second creative trick as human beings we use is that we use workarounds. I will say that, oh yeah, I don't need to wear the knee brace for to improve my knees. I can just keep taking walks and exercise them. Do I exercise or no is separate. Do I know how much of walking, exercising, running impacts my knees negatively also is separate, which is something you can bring up in your conversation with that consumer. But all consumers are using these two tricks. So when you think about what the status quo is, keep thinking of these two tricks also, because you will be using them as conversation starters, as motivators to change status quo. Okay. The next is, what are our buying triggers? There are four types of buying triggers. This is what happens at the start of a search process. Now, just to be clear, what is the search process? In any consumer purchase, there is a step by step process that a consumer takes. In some cases, it could be a 5 minute or a 2 minute process in the case of an impulse buy. In some cases, it could take a few weeks, a few months, whatever that looks like, depends on your business, your brand, your sales cycle. So you start with understanding what is the problem. Then you start the search process to figure out what will solve that problem. Then you will evaluate your alternatives. Then you will determine and make the purchase. And then there will be a post purchase behavior. So we'll discuss this. But just to give you a sense, that is what the search process is. The buying trigger is what helps people identify the start of the search process. Now, no matter what you do, first principles पे there are four types of buying triggers, and each one of them has a specific understanding. First is an emotional trigger. या तो उनको डर लग रहा है, they are fearful, they want to avert losses. Their goal isn't कि we want to increase our profits. Mostly it's I want to avert my losses. There is guilt or there is instant gratification that they're looking for. The second is social triggers. We want some kind of social proof of our credibility. We want to belong. We want to win the competition. Now, then there could be a situational trigger. Either there's an internal or an external change in my environment, or there is a life event that's going on right now, or I know is about to come. The fourth is there's scarcity, there's something I don't have, or I have less of that everyone else has adequate or more of. Now, whatever buying trigger that you focus on for each of these stakeholders, think about each one of them and identify which ones of them apply. It's fine at this stage to have multiple of them, and put them in the relevant cell. We will work on them, but right now, just keep thinking about it. As you speak to your customers, try and identify what is it that uh, triggers them to make that change. What is it that triggers a mother to say bhai tuition to aap isi wale mein jaoge? What is it that triggers a father to say, this is the way I run my home and I want a certain kind of control? Whatever that looks like. I'm not trying to be stereotypical here, I'm just trying to feed in ideas to you so that you can start understanding what that process can be. Yeah. Now, after that, and by the way, after each sub step in this step itself, feel free to pause, go back to the cell, and then understand what you need to do. Do this for each and every stakeholder. In some cases, you might have 20 stakeholders also that you've done this entire exercise for. Perfectly fine to do that. Do not limit yourself. The sky is the limit at this point. The next is the goal. What is the goal people have? So when they have a buying trigger, let's say the buying trigger is fear, what is it that they want to get done actually? वो तो उसने उस बाइंग ट्रिगर ने तो उनको स्टार्ट करा प्रोसेस से, एंड कहाँ हो रहा है वो प्रोसेस उनके लिए जहाँ पे वो बोलेंगे दिस इज सक्सेसफुल. इट्स कॉल्ड जॉब्स टू बी डन, right? I want you to identify what those jobs to be done is going to be. It's the best case scenario that the user wants to achieve. Now, there is a main job that they need to be done. There will be a functional aspect of it, which is I want to lose 20 kilos of weight. Have I done this? Yes or no? It should show on the weighing scale. Then there is an emotional aspect of it also, where how do I feel when I do it? Have I missed out on a lot of opportunities? Do I feel better about myself? Do I feel healthier? Do people respect me a lot more? Maybe a related job to be done for that is, am I fitting into my jeans from 20 years ago? Am I looking better than I used to? Am I looking healthier? Am I looking thinner? Is my sari fitting in well? Whatever that looks like, right? So you want to start identifying what that looks like. And I'm again reminding you, I know I'm sharing this in shorter. This one step of stakeholder mining takes us a few hours to complete. And that is when I sit in with my clients. In some cases, when folks are sitting by themselves, it can take you much, much longer. So give yourself that time, please. I know this is much longer and it's intended to be. Then we look at pain points. So now you've identified what their mind trigger is, what their status quo is, and what the jobs to be done or their utopia is. Pain points is whatever blocks or prevents them from their job to be done. रोकता क्या क्या? Maybe it's finances, maybe it's behavior, maybe it's motivation, maybe it's environment, maybe it's a skill issue, maybe it's a accessibility issue, maybe it's an availability issue. Whatever that looks like, you have to start to identify them. External भी हो सकता है, internal भी हो सकता है, philosophical भी हो सकता है. For example, philosophical can be a value based pain point where I want to consume 120 grams of protein a day, but I am a vegan and it's very hard for me to do that, and I want only whole foods. So philosophically there's a major disalignment on what I want to do, where I am right now, and what stops me from doing that. You get to this with keeping asking why. People will not know by themselves unless they're highly self-aware, and if they are, then there's only very little you can do to help them. But you have to, start to identify, start to draw these patterns. When we speak about other solutions that people are using to change status quo, we've discussed, right, two creative ways already under status quo, which is pretend it isn't a problem and use a workaround. The other two that you want to look at is look at direct competitors that help them get to the outcome that you're talking about or the jobs to be done. The indirect are alternatives or jugaad that reduce the pain, right? The indirect ones may not get them to the job to be done exactly, but they do bring them closer to it. So that's what you want to do. I have an example set up at the end of this video, so I will take you through what that looks like, right? Now, in channels, we will identify your potential GTM and we will discuss more about it then. So, give it some time and we will come back to this in that video. Now, anxiety. Everyone, because there is so much competition in terms of our attention only, and for every product, there are so many solutions. We're very scared of what if we don't choose the right thing, right? We keep thinking that there is a lot, the trade off is so much higher in getting the wrong thing than the payoff is in getting the right thing. So we spend a lot more time, especially when the purchase is of a higher value product, not just in terms of money, but also the impact, also the opportunity cost. That, there's a lot of negative features, and it's our job as founders, as brand marketers, as whosoever is working on the conversion to anticipate and address these. There are 5 types of anxiety that any customer has, regardless of the product. One is missing features. Maybe, I'm getting a Dyson alternative at 20% lesser cost, right? So it's not that big a cost difference, but it is lesser and it's exactly a Dyson alternative. But they say there's one particular piece that's not there, which is how they've reduced the cost. Now, that missing feature does create anxiety in me. What if that's the most important part? What if that is where the value is? So, if there is a missing feature from the alternatives that you've identified or the competitors that you've identified, you want to understand what that fear is. If there are inferior quality features, then what does that look like? If there is a cost difference, let's say you're telling me that this is the best bloody skincare product in the market today. It will uh, work like retinol and niacinamide mix. It's a duo alternative, and it's only available for 700 rupees for a product that actually costs 3299. The first thing I'm thinking is, okay, great, I'm saving money, but why is it so cheap? Why are they giving me such a huge discount on it? Are they trying to rip me off? Are they trying to give me a product that actually doesn't work as they say? Are they lying to me? Is there something else that they want from me? We're very scared of getting things for free when we know there's a little asterisk attached. So what is it that looks like? So that's another thing, confusing elements. If there's something that people don't actually understand properly, समझ ही नहीं आ रहा कि काम करेगा कैसे, then it's something that you want to be mindful of. And I'll talk in a bit after I speak about the final point here about why you want to be mindful of this. And finally, if there are any side effects or opportunity costs of getting the product you're recommending versus something else. Now what happens is, there are three kinds of shoppers. Okay, one is convinced that you are the right option for them, and they come in, they purchase, and they're out. You don't have to do anything about them, वो तो convince होकर आए हैं. There's another which says कि हमें आप पे विश्वास ही नहीं है, we don't agree with you for whatever reason, and we're not coming back. And the third is, look, I trust you, I want to believe you, I can see some alignment, but there's still some questions I have, and I'm a little concerned about it. This second category you cannot convert. And even if you might, the time it'll take will be so much more that your CACs will be higher, your LTVs will be lower comparatively, because they will be hawk like. By default, they have no trust on you. So you are actually much better off leaving these and focusing on this third category. And this is where, I see most people fail. They are trying to educate this second category of potential customers who will never buy from you. But this third category who are saying, look, I want to, but I'm just not sure. And I need more conviction, I need more convincing. Though them we are not focusing on at all. So that is where we want to focus. And the way to focus on them is to identify whatever their anxieties are and answer those questions for them in multiple different ways, which we'll also talk about in one of the future videos. Right? So that's why it's very, very important for us to solve for this. Okay, now we look at selfish desires. Now, selfish desires are the why behind why they want to solve the pain. Why is it painful for them at all? Jobs to be done हो भी क्या, तो उनको मिलता क्या है? What is that philosophical gain that they get? There are 8 core motivation drivers in any way, shape, or form, right? This is not just with consumer or consumer tech or B2B SaaS. This is in general, as per human psychology, behavior psychology, gamification studies. There are 8 core drivers. If you want to dig deep into this, actionable gamification is one of the best bloody resources I have ever um, read, used and studied the course. The author's amazing, and he's one of the world's experts on gamification. So I would recommend you read this. But 8 core drives in general, let me just take you through. One is epic meaning. We want to have some kind of epic meaning in our life. We want to be the hero of our lives. The second one is accomplishment. We want to feel like, we've accomplished something, as the name suggests, obviously. But an accomplishment cannot come out of things done easily, right? Which is where dopamine hits versus serotonin hits come into play. Just because a hobby is easy doesn't really make you feel like you've done a lot, but harder hobbies that take your attention, that take some effort, make you feel like you've been productive. So the effort that goes in is also important when it comes to accomplishment. You want to feel empowered to do something, you want to have some kind of ownership, social influence, scarcity, unpredictability, and avoidance. Now these are the total of 8 motivation drivers. Usually for any individual stakeholder, I don't think they're going to be more than 2 or 3, right? Because then it's not like you to prioritize them. What is the top number one, number two? That's about it. If you can identify what that looks like, and I'll show you an example of how to think about it also in a bit, that is when you can start solving for it. Okay. Now, here's an example, right? From earlier. This is from, I think, last year's workshop, one of the workshops I did. So, the my client identified some stakeholders for their chips brand. They identified the type, and actually we'll talk about how to go deeper into the type of these as we go. Um, they identified some buying triggers, the pains, the goals, the channels, all of that. Now look at this, and I'll show you another example. I will want you to go back and compare the two and tell me which one is more detailed, which one tells you more about the customer. I'm not going to answer that for you. I want you to do that, and if you like, put it in the comments below. But this is what I want you to think of. Okay, now let's say this is for a, which was this? This was for a gut health product. So, one of the stakeholders we identified was an office goer whose big challenge was that they feel very bloated because of the sedentary lifestyle. The sedentary lifestyle was not an identification in the buying trigger. They don't have a problem with having a sedentary lifestyle. They have a problem with the bloating, the indigestion, the weight gain. And the pain that they had was their meal timings were very messed up. They had poor sleep hours. They had weight gain. Their goal was improving digestion, bloating problems, helping with weight loss, all of that. They had multiple other solutions like an Eno or anything that gives them immediate relief, grandma's tips and tricks, antacids, long-term lifestyle solutions, clinical detoxes, personalized programs. So we genuinely went deep into this. Their anxieties were a few. Their big safety desires were they wanted to avoid the discomfort. They wanted to feel empowered to, lead a better life because by themselves they were struggling to do it. And finally, they wanted to have better social influence in terms of how people perceive them, right? Let's look at another example. Let's look at teenagers or adults with IBS, right? Where their buying triggers are their bloating, gas, constipation, difficult bowel movements. They have certain pain points, they have certain goals, channels we'll get to, they had solutions, they had certain anxieties. But in this, the safety desire of their parent or caregiver was accomplishment. Their parent wants to feel that I have done a good job of taking care of my kid who has a problem. But the one who has the problem, their big goal or big safety desire, not the goal, but their safety desire is they want to avoid the pain and discomfort. They want to feel empowered and they want to have better social influence. Usually, in if you have just single product, in most cases, 80 to 90% of safety desires will match um, across the stakeholders, unless the same product does a different job for each one of them, and works very differently for each one of them. For example, a product like how do I put this? A product like Moxie, they have product categories. So the ones for home use work differently because there the safety desire focuses on the consumer, and the products that they make for salon use actually work differently because the product is made for use by the salon people, and the final consumer where the product is used is you. But they are trying to convince the salon owner about the value of the product, right? So even within the same brand and for the same product, depending on who you market it to, who your stakeholder is, your safety desires can change. So give yourself that time. We'll put this all together, but this should take you time to do, right? Give yourself a few hours, keep coming back to this. In terms of stakeholders, don't worry about prioritization at this stage. We will do that later in the next steps. Right now, just put all your thoughts and learnings together. Now, everything that we've done so far for stakeholder mining, we will put it together in different parts of the workbook. I've marked this for you very easily. So let's say we're looking at buying triggers, right? Go to the link here and it will take you to triggers. You want to put all the buying triggers that you have identified here. Go to pain and put it in struggles or pain point. Go to goals, put it in jobs to be done. Channels, it'll take us a minute to identify. In other solutions, whatever other solutions you find, each one of them should be mentioned in these alternatives. Mark if they're direct or indirect, and then we'll get to the next steps. In anxieties, you want to fill this information here in friction. So each one, so you'll see, slowly and steadily your GTM canvas starts to get built. Now, once you're done with this, we will get to step two, which is top alternatives. In the meantime, please spend more and more time doing this. It's perfectly fine to come back and change what you have learned. So, what I do recommend is to do the putting it together exercise after you've spent considerable amounts of time on step one itself. Once you feel that there's no more that you can understand or do more research or that can come out of you and all the experience that you've had so far, that is when you want to get to setting things in the different parts of the workbook. Okay, I'll see you in the next video now. Bye.